r/Askreddit. What's the scariest gut feeling you had that came true? I worked at a hospital PRN and frequently picked up extra shifts. I worked overnights and had asked the supervisor to go ahead and put me down to work the next night. Well, as the night went on, I just felt fucking awful, like completely doomed. I had never wanted so badly to be home. I lived an hour away from my job, so by the morning I called the supervisor and asked her to remove me from the schedule. So I went home, feeling unexplainably scared. By the time I woke up, I was getting calls that an EF5 tornado had hit the town I worked in and the hospital I worked at. I used to work as a nurse in an old people's home. I had great contact with one of the little old ladies there. One night, after having helped her get to bed, I said good night, see you tomorrow, knowing I was coming in the next morning. Oh no, she said merrily, I don't think we'll see each other tomorrow. It felt kind of off and I went home feeling strange about it. When I came into work the next morning, she had died peacefully in her sleep, no more than a few hours after I'd left her. By the time I was 13, my mom had been battling cancer for a year and a half. It was a few days after my birthday, and she was due for an 4-port surgery the following morning. Just a simple day surgery, right? She came to my room to say goodnight, and I freaked out. For some reason, I knew this surgery would not go well. This is after she had lung surgery, and multiple bouts of chemo and radiation on her chest and brain. She reassured me that it was fine, and that we would go bowling a few days later. She never returned home. During the surgery, her remaining full lung collapsed, and it went entirely downhill from there. Just over a month later, she passed away. I have no idea what caused my fear of that being the end, but unfortunately I was right. When I was in my late teens, I was hanging out with a friend in my room. Suddenly I started feeling panicky, with something telling me to leave the house. I decided to listen to my gut and told my friend we had to go to the store right now. Went outside to find my dad passed out in his truck, looking really sick and pale. Me and my friend pulled him out of the truck and he called 911 while I performed CPR on my dad and saved his life. Later found out he had overdosed on drugs and choked on his own vomit. Who knows what would have happened if I didn't have the overwhelming urge to walk to the store for no reason. Couple of posts today are bringing me back to a sad place. I was going to bed and thought to myself that I should turn up my phone volume in case someone called me in the night with something serious. I had no reason at all for that kind of thinking. 5 a.m. my dad tells me my 57-year-old mom was taken to the emergency room. She died 5 days later. Not really mine, but I think it counts. My mom was going to the dentist a few years ago and she decided that she wanted to bring my brothers and I, but at the last second she said that we should stay home because she felt something wrong. Later that day I got a phone call from her and her voice was very weak, saying how I should not worry and that she would be fine. She was in a car accident and the passenger side where I always sit caved in at least 3 feet, and if I was sitting there, I would have been toast. I love you, Mom. Edit: I'm sorry guys. I should be more clear. She thankfully did not die, but her spine was badly injured from the crash and went through therapy for a while and then fully recovered. She is a beast. The night before my brother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, this was only 2 weeks back. I was over at my uncle's. During the night I had this feeling of dread. I wanted to be with my father and mother, brother lives away from us. In the night I had a horrible dream. An indistinguishable figure was lying on a bed dying. I am waken up by my aunt who informs me my brother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'd quite warranted that dream and feeling, but it was definitely something horrible. When I was 12, my dad was a semi-truck driver. One day after school I had a horrible feeling about him going to work the next day. I had begged him in tears to stay home from work, but he just told me that he'd be home in time for dinner the next day. He was killed in an accident with another semi early the next morning. I think a gut feeling led to me not being kidnapped. I was maybe 9 at the time. I was in a department store, wandering on my own, when all of a sudden the most terrible, gut-wrenching feeling came over me. I don't know how, but I knew I had to get back to my mom. I ran to the aisle she was in. A man hurriedly followed me into the aisle. When he saw I was with my mother, he stood there for a few seconds and stared at me, before walking away. I will never forget that feeling, or his terrifying face. I was talking to my mom when she was coming back from Corpus Christi, and this wave of worry came over me. I said, "Mom, be safe, alright? I'm sorry for arguing with you. I love you." Not even 30 minutes later my sister texts me that they were hit by another car. I started panicking and crying, and then she said, "But we're all right." I've never argued with my mom again. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. My 3-year-old kept hinting that he wasn't going to grow up. He said he talked to Jesus at the science table in preschool. He said Jesus said he had to choose whether to stay or to go. Of course, I was panicky and full of terror and kept saying that he was going to stay with mommy, etc. 4 days later, a vehicle at a car wash I was forced to moderate by my supervisor, rolled backwards from a parking space and killed my son. My ex-husband had gone under the vehicle to check on some wiring. Worst day of my life. It is the first thing and the last thing I think of every day. Went to Dave & Buster's. Hanging out at the bar and just had a bad feeling about the people around me. 30 minutes later, a fight broke out next to me between 2 different parties over some girl. Got a piece of broken glass on my arm and security guards sprayed pepper spray everywhere and I caught some on my face. Shitty night, but I got a decent story out of it. Had one this week that came true yesterday. I work at the kart track at Auto Club Speedway, and on Wednesday as we were having a meeting I said to a co-worker, "You know, they never did solve the catch fence problem after the Vegas race. Is it going to take another big wreck for people to get motivated again?" Last night a car went into the catch fence during practice. Looks like the driver will be fine, but he's hurt fairly badly. Fun story, couple weeks ago, my GF knew for the first time in 4 years where she wanted to go for dinner. When we got there she dumped me. Knew something was wrong the whole time, but everything was fine when I'd ask. At one point she refused to hold my hand and I asked her one more time. "Got a really? You want to do this here?" One evening in April 2007, I went out to play soccer with friends. Just before I left my mother came back from seeing my grandparents and she looked tired, a bit gaunt. Didn't sound in the best of spirits. She had suffered with depression and some troubles. I was worried for her. She died of a brain hemorrhage that evening. I was messing about with a bit of rope at work, making it into different knots, on a quiet night, and one of the knots was a noose. I suddenly felt that I should 100% not be doing that and threw it in the bin, feeling really angry with myself. A few hours later, I got a call saying a co-worker who had gone missing that week had been found, having hung himself in his home. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Me and my friend went to the midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. I don't live near Aurora, but the whole night during the movie I didn't feel safe and I really wanted to leave because multiple people were dressed in costumes and I went over ways to escape the theater if anything happened. I went home later that night and heard what happened. I woke up to like 4,219,804 calls from my family, literally everyone but my brother. I had a gut feeling something happened to him. Then my mom told me he had been in a car accident and they were still waiting for information about it. I had a gut feeling he was dead. I had never been so sure of something in my life. I'm pretty sure I went through the 5 stages of grief backwards. I started off with acceptance immediately. I pretty much accepted that he was dead even before my sister called me with the confirmation. My gut feeling was just that powerful, I guess. I was just speaking with my 84-year-old grandmother about this. She grew up in Germany during World War II and one day her and her family were trying to make their way to a neighbor's home for safety. She said she felt a horrible urge to hit the ground and yelled for her family to drop. Bullets went over their heads. They were all fine. Crazy stuff. Driving on the freeway next to a truck carrying about 8 cars. Driving next to these big trailers doesn't really bother me, but something told me to get over to the left anyways. Just as I'm switching lanes, one of his tires blows and the whole trailer sways, and had I not gotten over, I would be been smashed. Coming back down from the adrenaline rush, I look back to see a glitter of broken glass and rubber raining down. I was literally inches from death. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more.